Mr. Orson, Mr. Orson, the comments that you made the other day with the superintendent, do you still want this one to stay on, or?
Can we need some context if we make some change, rather, because I don't want people to think we've just abandoned this idea.
Right, okay, go ahead.
And I want to take my lead because at Liberty, from what my understanding is, there's some further investigation perhaps your department feels they need to do with how things have been operating in the department and the financial management of that department. Would that be a fair summation?
Of that area, yes, sir.
Okay. And this has gone to, in part, this amendment has gone to that very issue, which is part of it is my advocacy that I think management, because it's really a financial transaction, should be in the finance department because it's primarily a financial. That's my personal opinion, which has been one of my motivations for introducing this. Before I say yes to your question, I have sort of one observation question, which is for you. This is, you always have to be careful about the anecdotal information. There appears to be some concerns, as have been evidenced in emails I've received from people out in the community, which I have not responded to because it's not my job, but I want to make you aware in general about schools having access to funds where it's clear that they have the funds. I know one of the concerns has been there are some accounts that are out of balance or in the red, and you're trying to ascertain why that is. Throughout the county, I believe there are a number of schools that have a positive balance, not just from the last year, but this positive balance goes back multiple years. And I have been led to believe that they are being told by the office that we've discussed that they can't access any of those monies until after October 1st. And that's going to create a problem for those who are trying to fund programs and are now being told that they can't access the money for another 3 months with school starting next week, when there's no question about them having a balance. We're not talking about, something close or marginal. We're not talking about them exhausting. So to the chairman's point, I am open to deferring this for another month. If we can have some understanding that office that you think you need to investigate some further will not be an impediment when it is clear that there are available funds and legitimate uses for those funds. I'm trying to be as delicate as possible in this thing, but it goes back to what caused this problem to arise in the beginning, and it is repeating itself. And there are people who are already concerned with school opening that they're getting directive from. They at least are interpreting the directive that monies might not be available, sort of in the excess funds category, until 3 months into the school year. So I am amenable to delaying consideration of this for another month, as long as we can have some common understanding that if there are some legitimate uses and clear funds available, that schools are not going to be impeded for 3 months from accessing those funds.
Is that clear enough with everyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That clear enough with them? Okay, well, then I don't think we need to take I'm sorry.
I'm just looking at the policy. I'm just looking at the policy at your point number 4, where it says, for the process of fiscal management, an expenditure of $5,000 or more shall require written approval of the chief financial officer. What's to prevent me from writing 3 checks for $4,999?
Well, this is a sort of a state. It's as Superintendent Thurman knows, having worked at the state, that is the age-old axiom about people are writing. They usually write them for $4,995. Right. They leave them the little wiggle room, but I think there has to be an element of good faith, and the general tendency, I think, is sort of aggregate spending, so people aren't breaking up what is legitimately more than $5,000 into smaller payments, and that's really an internal controls issue.
If I could speak to that, relative to the draft policy, Mr. Arnson, as we stated at the last time this was discussed, the way you divide the money initially, and I think your item number 1 and number 2, is different than the way we've been handling it for years in terms of the 10%, 9% divide. First of all, that's an issue. I've written a little narrative at the superintendent's request that kind of talks about what other policies, board policies govern this program, something of its history. There was a financial review / audit of the program done in 2010. I've attached that to the narrative and put that in the system. Y'all should see that, okay? What is being recommended is that we take a look at that document and then also have the program audited one more time to cover the years FY 10, 11, and 12, okay? And then take the results of that first financial review and then a financial audit and use that to inform any changes that might be made to the program as it is. Now, in relation to some schools being told there's no money until after October 1st, in discussions with Dr. Hill, she says that the list that we the finance division provided that showed some deficits, not great deficits, she says she has revised that, and I think there's only one location that now she indicates has a deficit. Okay, so it's not being driven by a deficit situation.
Right, and I understand that. That's part of my concern, that there are schools, and I don't want to deal in the area of speculation, which is why I bring it to your attention and ask you to follow up. Schools that appear to have positive balance that have also been told kind of system-wide that they can't access the funds till October 1st. Perhaps they're misinterpreting it or they're misunderstanding it, but I don't want to add fuel to this fire which is generated in the first place. To your initial point about the disposition of proceeds and where expenses coming off the top, as we discussed at the last meeting, that was my understanding. It is not my intent by virtue of this legislation to change the practice. It was my understanding of the practice, and it is what I have heard from people at the school level in the past. So if their understanding is incorrect, then I'm certainly open to having this match what has been the general practice. But I want to be clear that whatever we do is actually matches that general practice, because I've heard a different narrative than you have.
Okay, maybe in the future you want to talk to the superintendent about procedures relating to the dispersion of the monies. Two, I hear related to the policy in itself. Now, do you want to defer this for a month, or do you want to defer it to after the evaluation of it? What? Because if the superintendent, what I heard the superintendent say the other day, in fact, that he wanted to have an audit of it. So would you like to maybe postpone it until after the audit, or how do you want to word it?
Yeah, can we get an idea what the timetable is for the audit? Because
I think the desire is to have it done by an external firm.
Okay.
It won't be done in a month. I think to engage a firm and then have 3 years audited, it will probably be 2 to 3 months.
Okay, so would it be fair, and again, as long as we have an understanding that I alluded to before, if we were to postpone this to, say, our November meeting, would that August, September, October, there's 3 months.
Might be ready, might not be. It depends.
Why don't we just postpone until after the audit?
Okay, but that's one of those things that, the cart and the horse here, so if we don't get around to doing the audit, it could be postponed.
Yeah, can I just...
So I'd rather have a date. If November is too early of a date certain, I'd rather have a date certain so that we are all operating under the same expectation. So if December is a better date, I'm perfectly comfortable. But I would rather not leave it open-ended, because open-ended tends to just keep being open-ended. Mm-hmm. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Dr. Morley?
Yeah, I just want to say, most certainly we don't want to have it open-ended, but then I don't want us to be pushed, everybody else to a point where we have to come up with something. And these are some of the things that we've been doing, is just have something on the books to say we're coming up with a date, and that's not realistic. If we're going to say it's going to be after the audit, then we need to look at when the audit will be and have it done after the audit. I'm suggesting that we do it after the audit. I don't think that we need to approve something like this or move forward or say another 30 days and there's a pending audit. I would say let's wait until after the audit, and then if we can get a date as to when the audit is going to be, and then go ahead and move forward. So that will keep it from being open-ended, but at the same time, if we start putting time frames on when this is going to take place by November, I think that it gives us a wrong impression of exactly which direction we're going.
Well, to your point, I think putting some certainty in this is important for us managing the process. And I am amenable, if November is too soon, to say December. I think anything you leave open-ended, institutions are such that other things fill the space, and then it just keeps rolling over. And
might we do this? Might we say within a month after the audit is completed? That's a date certain. We don't have,
But it doesn't guarantee when the audit takes place. So I want to create a backstop that ensures that the audit has taken place. If the audit doesn't place for 2 years, we wouldn't be considering this for 2 years.
Why would we be irresponsible and not have an audit for 2 years?
Well, that's a whole.
I know, but you're on the board. You're on the board.
No, I understand it, but we don't. And I expect that the finance department will do its job. That is not a commentary on you, but lots of things fill the space when you don't have a date certain.
In view of time, Mr. Superintendent, will you respond when you anticipate the audit to be done?
First, just a little bit of background. The issue presented itself because we felt it was important to fully disclose in a very transparent way the existence of this sum of money and the account. Prior to that, these monies had been maintained off the books. So board members and our stakeholders had, although they knew money existed, they had no specific knowledge as to the amount of the money, and yet we still don't know, at least over the years that Dr. Bell pointed to, how that money had been used, to be honest with you. And there are some questions, serious questions, that have arisen in the period of our due diligence. And I believe that the audit will help inform, I know it will help inform the administration as to what type of policies, procedures, and regulations should be put in place. Now, I thought I heard Dr. Bell say that whatever we do, it will not impact the repatriation or redistribution of the money that we do have. Is that right?
I think we continue to follow the present operations handbook. Things ought to stay as they are now. Yes, sir. Okay, so I think, Mr. Orson, one of your concerns was as to whether or not any money owed or due to be distributed, whether or not this would hold that up. And my understanding is that the answer to that is no. That's correct, yes.
Well, the nuance in that is that part of the issue has been apparently times a disagreement between that office and the schools over an expenditure as to whether it was an allowable expenditure, which has led to trying to clarify lots of these issues in one thing. And so, again, so I think the reason for this policy still remains to bring clarity, which would then be further enhanced by administrative regulations that you would issue after this policy, which is, again, why I think to ultimately resolve these issues, as you pointed out, the lack of a policy has led to some of these questions. We need to get back to the policy. I'm willing to defer getting back to the policy for a reasonable amount of time to allow you to do what you think is necessary. So to me, I would feel most comfortable with a date certain. And if we get to the date and there's something that has become really an obstacle, we certainly have the option of deferring again. But I'd like to say it is now August, September, October, November. If we said December, whatever our December meeting is, so at least we have some intentionality about this.
Well, and that doesn't bother me really, okay. But I think the best evidence of the intentionality was the fact that we bought it forward.
No. I'm not down there. I just know you have lots going on, and for us, I always find historically when you have a date certain, it gets you to a point of prioritizing.
Well, I've directed Dr. Bell to engage an outside firm to conduct the audit, and I don't think he's going to tarry in that regard. I expect that to happen sooner. Is that right, Dr. Bell?
Under the purchasing policies, depending upon what these outside firms determine to be their fees, we should be able to move quicker rather than slower relative to the purchasing process. Yes, sir.
So I would propose to this point that we postpone this matter until our December meeting. That's my proposal.
All right. Is that okay with everybody? We'll postpone until December. Yeah. We'll take it up at that time.
With a commitment that we're going to move as expeditiously as possible.
But I want to give you also.
Yeah, that's why we.
But it doesn't mean that the audit has to be done by that time. It means that we will address it again in December.
Hopefully it is.
Right. So. And hopefully it will be done. Item number 3, bylaw.